We should hopefully be live. Yes, I think we're live now on Facebook. Hello, hello. Hello, everybody. Hope you are jolly, jolly well. Um, you might, the eagle-eyed amongst you, might notice that there is something missing from this picture here. In at the moment, it's just me. So yeah, hopefully Barbara will be able to join us in a little bit. But at the moment, it's just me, which is great. But what is really going to be really important is that you can say hello and make me feel so that I'm not completely all by myself because it's blooming lonely and I'm used to having my buddy here with me. So give us a shout, say hello, tell me how you are, what you've been up to, what's going on with you, and that would be fab. Oh, it says, oh gosh, and now of course the software is being weird. It says that I've got one comment, I've got two comments, but it isn't actually telling me what they are. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to go into the group on my phone and follow it there. Hi, Alison. Hi, Louise. Oh, good, you're a lot better. I'm glad to hear that. Yeah, let me know when you want me to pop over, because I will do that and I'm looking forward to it. So yes, I hope everybody is all good. What's been going on with us lot here? Well, the big news in the Hawkins house was that my son left for Pastures New on Friday. So he's at the moment he's in Singapore. He'll be in Melbourne on Sunday. So I'm a little bit bereft, as you can imagine. But it's so cool for him, isn't it? What an opportunity to be able to go and do all that kind of stuff. How much fun will that be? And he's already, this is the best bit, he's already talking about that he can't wait until he can have his own house, so he can get a dog. Bless him. So yeah, that's what we're discussing already. Okie dokie. I'm just going to give everybody a couple more minutes to come on board. It's just having a quick check. See, this is the trouble when it's just me. I actually have to multitask, which is really flipping hard when you're me. And have a tiny, tiny brain. Oh, thanks, LJ. Do you know what? I need lots of hugs at the moment. I am finding it really, really tricky, which is a bit silly. But hey ho, here we are. Okie doke. So, what are we talking about today? So, we are carrying on with this whole series of things that we've been going through about getting to know your dog. Um, oh, hang on, got a lovely message from Lisa. Um, she's been watching Susan Garrett's agility 4-day course. Fantastic. Started agility lessons with her little reactive terrier mix, who was able to do some tunnels there, like we practiced at home. Yay! Adult children, it's very difficult. It absolutely blooming is. You want to just keep them little and keep them close, yet at the same time you want them to go away as well. That's the thing that I find the most difficult. Anyway, oh, Andrea from the frosty southwest of Canada, lovely to see you. So yes, we are getting to know our dogs, and I know that people that come along to our lives particularly and are really engaged in the group and everything. You're people who know your dogs really, really well. You observe your dogs, you get to know them, you treat them for who they are rather than making loads of assumptions about them and all that kind of stuff, which is absolutely fantastic. However, I also know that it's a really great idea. It's like with going back and doing basic training. You know, when you go back and you do things like your settle and you do, if you're, Susan Garrett person, you do your It's Your Choice and your collar grabs, and like the real, real basics. it's a really great idea to keep going back and revisiting those. And it's the same with this, really, in that it's a great idea just to remind ourselves, actually, this is who my dog is. And this is why we might be having some of the challenges that we're having, just because of their individual personality. So today, the plan is to have a look at how focused your dog is, really. Are they the sort of dog that focuses on stuff really, really intently? So they're quite difficult to bring away from something that they're interested in doing. Or is your dog a little bit more of a butterfly brain? And both of those, like me, for example, as you can tell on the live, actually, because I get distracted and go off at tangent so flipping off, honest, so flipping often. But the thing is that there are challenges with both, and there are amazing strengths with both. And so working with both of those things can be really useful. So, hi, Berit, lovely to see you. Now, just because Barbara isn't here, don't worry, there will still be many, many fruit questions. So, my first question for you is, does your dog, so say your dog is doing a task, so you're doing some training with them, or maybe they're playing with a puzzle toy, do they, or even within your training, actually, the different training things that you're doing, does your dog stick to a task no matter what, or are they easily distracted? So if they stick to their task, can you show me an apple? If they're more easily distracted, a bunch of grapes, please. So what about your dog? I think I have probably one of each. I think for Hattie, she's more of an apple. Dash is more of a bunch of grapes. He gets very distracted by just wanting to go and have a little bit of a nap, to be honest. He quite likes going and having a little sit down. Hi, Marion. So we got grapes from LJ, grapes from Alison, grapes everywhere. So we've got some butterfly brains. Anybody else can tell me a little bit about their dogs, what they are like? Beret is grapes outside. So when there are distractions around, you have a bunch of grapes. Okay. Okay. So depends on what you're doing and how many triggers are stacking. Yeah. And they do get, when there's more triggers, they tend to get more grapey, don't they? But if we think about what they're like naturally, so when they're fairly calm and all that kind of stuff, what do they look like? So let's say something exciting has happened to your dog. It could have just been something that you've done. You could have played a game, you could be doing some really cool training, whatever. Um, After they've done something really exciting, actually, it could be after a reactive episode. So after they've done something exciting, do they take a while to settle after that? Or can they relax and calm down quite quickly? So if they take a while to settle, let's have a pineapple. If they relax quite quickly, let's have a watermelon. So a pineapple, if they take a little while to settle, and if they relax quite quickly, that'll be a watermelon. So let's see what you guys' dogs are like in terms of settling down. Let's have a little look. Oh, getting some lovely, let's see those pineapples. Aha, so Alison is a pineapple at the moment, so it takes a while to settle, but getting quicker. And that's something that we definitely notice, isn't it? It's one of the first things that we notice when we're working with reactivity, so that recovery time starts to improve, which is blooming brilliant. Oh, I hope our Barbara's okay. I've lost her. How careless. Okay, so anybody else? Oh, lovely, lovely, lovely. So Barrett's a watermelon if it's one reaction and the bucket's not yet full. I mean, when you get a reaction will indicate that the bucket has overflowed, but it might just be a little bit of a bucket overflowing rather than like a massive overflowing. What determines how quickly they settle down? Well, there's two things. Is the stuff going into the bucket to make it carry on overflowing and overflow more, going in more quickly than it can drain with the hole in the bottom of the bucket. So if you've got, it's a lot of this is about that hole in the bottom, which is all really about looking at calmness and that ability to self-regulate. So that's kind of what that bit's about. Yeah, pineapple to watermelon. I totally get where you're coming from with all of that. Okay. So could you put in the comments tell me about a time that your dog got completely fixated on something and what happened? Because like you've said and like we've indicated, sometimes they'll fixate on some things and not others. There is kind of a trend with dogs that some will be more fixated than others and some will be easier distracted than others. So, but all dogs will get fixated on stuff at some point. So can you actually, I'm going to answer somebody's question in a little while, and I'll talk a little bit more about that then. So can you tell me about a time that your dog has really fixated on something and what happened? So did they have a reaction? Did they freeze? What happened in their body? Did anything weird happen in body language? Anything like that. So it could be they fixated on a car or a squirrel or a leaf. Dogs are weird and wonderful creatures, aren't they? You never quite know exactly what you're going to get. So what about you? When was the time that your dog fixated on something? Marion's got a butterfly brain dog as well. Let's have a look. Ah, yes. So Lisa, this is absolute classic. So when her dog fixates on something, you get the freeze. And then if that's allowed to continue, you will get the reaction. And that's really, really common. It's all about that movement, isn't it? You get that freeze and you know that at that point, it's going to kick off like any minute, unless you've done something about it. And actually, at that freeze point, it's quite difficult to distract your dog, isn't it? So LJ, when you're close to a trigger, like seeing a dog friend he wants to play with, I make more space and he recovers. Okay, good. Well done. That sounds fabulous. Really, really nice. Okie dokie. If your dog is sniffing a good scent, will they listen to you or do they carry on? Hang on. Excuse me. So if your dog is on a scent and you want them to bring them off the scent, will they listen or do they carry on sniffing? Ah, so Beret has a very visual dog. Anything that wasn't there last time, she will stop and stare. Um, if I can explain, she will offer accept it. And that could be about novelty. And a lot of dogs, we've sort of touched on this before, a lot of dogs struggle with things that are new and novel because it's a survival mechanism, isn't it? It's like if I assume that the new thing is going to kill me, I'm going to live longer than if I assume that it's going to be my best friend. Barrett's dog, yeah, carries on with the scent. Alison says delayed reaction and the request needs to be repeated. Yes, and we don't want to repeat them, do we? Because, otherwise our dogs can start learning to ignore what we're saying, and what we're saying becomes background noise and something that they don't take much notice of at all. So we don't want that to happen. But yes, you're absolutely right. And that's usually what you find yourself doing rather than thinking of other strategies so you don't have to actually repeat yourself. Absolutely right. So, and here's the thing. If you have, let me just ask a quick question. So thinking about all the stuff that we've said, hi Carmela, you're allowed to be late. I'll let you off this one time, honest. Think about your dog. Do they prefer that consistency? Do they like doing the same thing every day? Or do they like trying new things? LJ says when they're sniffing ears off, and I respect that. Do you know what? I do too. It's okay. Oh, I hope everything's okay, Carmel, if you've been to the vets. Um, so yeah, Anne says if it's a new scent, then difficult to get their attention. Lisa, depends what I have for a treat or interrupter. Absolutely. Been training and reinforcing the quick getaway. I gasped, turn, quickly walk the opposite direction. Nice. So yes, Bella likes trying new things. And cheers, dog. Always game for new or old. Excellent. You've got a real like do a drivey dog, haven't you? It's not like oh for goodness sake, it's this again. That's what I go with Hattie. If you can imagine a dog rolling their eyes, that's Hattie in those situations. Like seriously, we're doing this again. We're going to this place on our walk again. Have you got no imagination, human? I know. She's terrible. She's very judgmental, my dog. It's a good thing she's lovely. That's all I can say. Um, yeah, both new things as long as they're in the comfort zone. So, what does the comfort zone look like? Or what does not being in the comfort zone look like, more to the point? Because I think that's quite a common thing. It's like these things are vaguely familiar, so I'm happy with that. But what is it about things that makes them weird and outside that comfort zone? And that actually, pinpointing that as a thing could give us some really interesting information of what's going on in our dog's head and actually what are the things that they really worry about. So you could look at, is it like we discussed before, the basic level, is it something visual? Or is it tend to be something, some sort of movement related thing that takes them outside their comfort zone? Maybe it's a noise that takes them outside their comfort zone. Is it things that move in a particular way? Is it the size or the shape of a thing? It's color, it's less likely to be, except for things like fluorescent yellow could be quite difficult, or fluorescent blue, because we know that our dogs just look at those yellows and those blues. They don't really look at anything else. But yeah, really analyzing and drilling down as to exactly what is it that makes this thing weird. And that's kind of important. So, I mean, I could give you an example. I'm trying to just think of some. I mean, seeing things for my two aren't much of an issue. For Hattie, noises, they're the biggies for her that take her outside her comfort zone. So it could be like cracky, bangy noises, take her outside her comfort zone. But having said that, because of their background, I've done an awful lot of work with them on building that confidence with novelty. So we went for a walk. It was ages ago now. It was when it wasn't muddy, so which must be about 100 years ago, it feels like. We went for a walk and we just went over some fields, over a lovely hill. It was beautiful, really nice. Round a corner, it's a field. Inside the field was a llama right by the fence. And of course, my two never seen a blooming llama, so they like stopped and they looked and they're like, it's like a horse crossed with a sheep. I know about both those things. They're not going to hurt me. We're okay. So that was they were okay with that. They wanted to have a little look, but they disengaged really quickly because it was like, I can compute this and I'm not stressed by it because I've had similar experiences. Okay, so what have you said? So, Lisa uses old tricks, helping gain confidence when experimenting with things. Absolutely. And if you've got your tricks or any behaviors you've got and they're super duper strong, you can use them stealthily. So you can do some stealth training, which is super, super duper useful. Yeah, we're good people that like to allow our dogs to have a good sniff, which is brilliant. Oh, crikey. Blooming comments have gone off again now. Here we go, here we go. So here we go. Alison says, outside the comfort zones are things I know she doesn't like. Noise, too busy, unfamiliar people or dogs, but all landscapes, etc. are good. Yeah. And I do really believe that getting quite specific with the sorts of things that are outside the comfort zone can be so helpful when it comes to actually understanding our dogs and what's going on in their giant stroke tiny brains, depending. Okay, what about this? This is another funny one that I've noticed. And actually, it totally goes against what I just said about Hatties and Dash. Um, if you, I don't know, do you ever do that thing where you take your dog for a walk and you just totally allow them to lead so they can go wherever they want? Is that something that you guys do? If it is something that you do, can you put in the comments a pair, please? So if you do dog-led walks where the dog gets to choose which way you go, then just pop a pair in the comments. It's one of my absolute favorite things to do. And I particularly like doing it when I take the dogs out individually because then they each get to have total agency. So they get to decide exactly what experience they're going to have and what it's going to look like. Yay! You guys are my tribe. So, what does your dog do? So, I did an experiment about 2 weeks ago where I took the dogs out individually and we just went outside the front door and we started from outside the front door. So, it was a really familiar starting place. And I started off with Dash and he got to choose where he went. So, we went on a little walk. And then I got home, he went away, got Hattie out, and she got to choose where she went. And I wanted to know what they would choose. Now, Dash, he decided that we were going to explore lots of places that we wouldn't. Ah, Mary's here as well. She's got a pair as well. Fantastic. He was going to explore lots of places that we wouldn't normally go. So it was mainly things like car parks. It was like little bits of scrubby undergrowth. It was nowhere that I would choose to go on purpose. But I could see why he did, because there was probably foxes had been there and little animals and people had dropped litter and all sorts. So, I mean, Dash is he's such a revolting boy sometimes. He really is. But anyway, we ended up going on a nice long walk. And he was properly exploring and going, many different places as he possibly could. Hattie, on the other hand, bless her, took me around the block. She was like, literally, and I every time I'm thinking, are you sure you want to go this way? That's going to just take us back. And whether it was because she was worrying about whether she was a bit sore with her arthritis and she thought, let's just make sure this is a nice short walk. I don't know, because I'm not in her head, but it was so interesting. So what happens with your dogs? What would they do in that situation? Do you know? Do you want to give it a try? See what happens? So let me know in the comments. What would your dog, do you think your dog would do? What have they done if you have tried it? And if you haven't, fancy having a go? So Alison, same as Dash. Yeah. Is it something, have you done that before, Alison? Or so it's somewhere quite familiar so you can really experiment. Do you know what we might do? I think it might be quite fun. Is do this little activity with our dogs. So they're going out, where they're leading the walks. And we just take pictures of the most stupid places that our dogs take us to. Um, yeah, brilliant. So, Pat, yeah, my second dog would often track the first one. That was something that I wondered if Hattie would do. And it was almost, she went the same direction out of the front door, but then there was only two choices. So that was 50% going to happen. But when they kind of branched off, I did like raised an eyebrow because I could see that she was sniffing his pee spots on the way as well, and peeing on top of them as well, to make sure that she was there. Gonna try it tomorrow, Louise. Yeah, give it a go. It's so much fun. The only thing to be careful of course, is if you have a reactive dog, you don't want your dog to take you where there are 80 billion other dogs, or to things they're going to really struggle with. So I'm thinking of a dog like Bodhi, LJ's dog Bodhi, who gets super excited with other dogs and thinks it's brilliant. So he's going to want to go, yes, I want to go over where all the dogs are. So think about the environment that you're doing it in so that those choices aren't available. But yeah, I think that's a really, really cool idea. Super duper. So anyway, what's the point of all this? So if you've got a yes, Carmela's, why you find it difficult, you do have to just, it's picking your places, isn't it? And going somewhere, I always talk about taking your dogs for a walk on industrial estates. I think they love it. Or car parks. They think it's brilliant. Weirdos. So all those people that have got, which is most of us, the proper butterfly brain dogs. Now, it's frustrating, isn't it? Because your dog, it's very difficult to keep them on a task, to keep them with you, to keep them training, because they're all over the shop. LJ just said Bodhi follows her tracks. That's so sweet. But the advantage with those type of dogs is they tend not to get quite so fixated on stuff. So they're easier to redirect, if that's how they are naturally. Whereas if you have one of those dogs that does fixate, the ones that always come into my head when I think of this are border collies, because that's their job. That's what they've been bred for thousands of years to do, is to fixate on a sheep. And they're looking for the one that's over there, and they have to not take their eyes off it and know exactly where it is. So we've kind of bred this in, and other guardian breeds will be the same. And we've bred this into our dogs to be able to do that. But the problem with that is sometimes they're fixated on the things that we don't want, and that can be then more difficult to bring them off it. So yeah, there are definite advantages. So if I work with Hats, who, as I say, she concentrates more, actually. She's the more fixed. Actually, she is the more fixated one. So she wasn't against what I said. She is the more fixed one. So when we are training, she concentrates really, really hard. And she will try really, really hard to do everything. She's gritty, she's determined, she doesn't give up easily. Okay, but that also means that, we've got my son that's left. He's the kitten still here. So Hattie tries to fixate on the kitten. So we have to manage that very, very carefully, because when she does fixate, she's so determined and she doesn't really back off. Whereas Dash, he will, I can bring him away from stuff much more easily. However, if we're training and it's like, oh, look, there's a leaf over there. And he gets so easily distracted. So it's kind of a swings and roundabouts thing. But it's just about knowing your dog, isn't it? It's just about knowing who they are. So Louise says when she comes out of her front door, Bella always wants to go left. Yeah, and it's a great idea, I think, if you've got a dog like Hats who does like to, do things the same. Try and mix it up a little bit, but make it fun when you mix it up, so that they can see the advantage of doing different things. Then it will really help them to learn to disengage. So Tess fixates on treats. She will do free work for 50 minutes. 50 minutes is I think it's 17 minutes, I think, is supposed to be the optimal time for doing free work. I think that's what Sarah Fisher says, it's 17 minutes. I can't quite remember. Yeah, it's the optimal time for them to be able to focus on the thing. So yeah, so I can see, and you can see now, Alison, can't you, why when you've got, if she's a reactive dog, getting her then to disengage from the things she's reacting to is going to be super challenging for her, because it's part of her personality. It's part of her personality trait, is to really be determined to stick with the thing. But I bet also if you wanted to train her to do a trick, she would be much easier to get to repeat and improve and that kind of thing for longer than a dash type dog for whom we have to keep sessions super short to match his super tiny brain. He doesn't have, no, he does have a super tiny brain. Who am I kidding? He's beautiful and he's adorable, but he is not the sharpest tool in the box, shall we say. So, yes, that's really what I wanted to talk about today. And isn't it amazing how much quicker we get through stuff when it's not just me and Barbara wittering onto each other all the time? It's nowhere near as fun though. Still enjoy it though. Okay, so yes, only if there's food involved, and that's kind of fair enough. I'm the same. We always need to think about what are we doing to motivate our dogs? Why are they going to do this? Whatever it is we want them to do with us. I don't say for us because it isn't really, it's with us. And there are only two real motivations: to get a thing they like or to avoid a thing they don't like. So we don't go the second one, we always do the first one. And dogs will do what works. So yeah, absolutely. But that's because there's that fixation and that kind of grit and that determination. I will get this food no matter what it takes. I absolutely will get the thing, which kind of makes a whole heap of sense. Anybody got any questions? And if you have any dog-related questions about your dogs, do feel free to bob those in the chat now. I do have one that was popped in the group. Was it? I think it was earlier today. And I think it was you, Carmela, that responded to it. So I thought I will have a quick chat about it now, even though it's a little bit outside our normal area, but it's kind of, all these things overlap, don't they? Yeah, exactly. It's Louis says, I suppose it's like us in college or university where you're taking things in. Yeah, you're just sitting there and you're concentrating. But for some people, it's really hard. Some people I know in my past life as a teacher, secondary school teacher, for some kids, sitting for an hour in a lesson is massively challenging. And actually, you're never going to get the best out of them by expecting them to sit still for that long and do the same, similar stuff for that amount of time. So, our sort of school systems don't necessarily work very well for a lot of kids for that reason. My own son, actually, the one that's moved away, he can't really think hard when he's still. He has to be moving because he's like a bunch of grapes when he's got ADHD, as sure you've identified, but he has to pace up and down. Impossible to take exams. He's done really well, but still, if he'd been allowed to wander around, he'd have done a whole heap better. Righto, peeps. If you've got any questions just about anything at all, doesn't have to be related to this, anything at all, you can bob them in the comments. While you're doing that, I'm going to address this question from Claire Hudson, who is having a real issue with her spaniel with resource guarding. She's also extremely reactive. It's outside. It's putting a massive strain on my marriage and creating lots of tension in the house. I think that resource guarding is such a stressful issue because it's happening like in your actual home. My husband and I disagree with the cause of the issue. He thinks my Cavapoo creates the issues, and I know it's my spaniel. I don't know what to do at this stage. I feel rehoming her is my best option. I have a 17-month-old Great Dane, 7-year-old Cavapoo, and Dari, who's nearly 4. Can anyone give advice? To be honest, to give really good advice, we'd need to have a big chat about everything that's going on because it's very difficult to know what the source of the problem is. And the first thing that I would want to know is what this resource guarding looks like. So is it at meal times? Is it resource guarding toys? Is it resource guarding a space, like a sofa or that kind of thing? Because how you deal with things will depend on, what it looks like. So say it's resource guarding food. Actually, for all of them, the reason that dogs resource guard well, there are quite a few reasons, but one of the main reasons that they resource guard is that they don't feel safe. They feel that something might go away for whatever reason. There are some other reasons for it. I'll talk about those in a second. Might even put them on the board if I'm feeling excited. Barry, I'll get back to you on that one in a minute. So yeah, say it was at meal times, then I would, regardless, with any dog that's resource guarding, I would be feeding separately so they feel safe. If there are things that are being resource guarded, management's going to be the first thing. We need to try to prevent access to those things to start off with. If it's a space, so say it's a place on the sofa, then you want to restrict access to that sofa while you're working on the resource guarding, because there's all sorts of different things that you need to do about that. So in fact, let's go to the board. This is going to be hard because I'm by myself, so I don't know if anyone can see me or not, but you'll tell me because you're delightful like that. I just need to flip my camera around. Otherwise, my writing will be back to front. So do it quite low down because then I can quite probably manage all by myself. So resource guarding, there are kind of a few different elements to it. And it depends, again, the other thing that we don't know from the question is the spaniel guarding against the other dogs or against the people. So there are a few things that can be going on. So one is movement. So let's say the issue is that the dog, if they've got a chew or a toy or something like, or a sock or whatever, a person comes towards them, tries to get it off them, they bark, they growl and they snap and whatever else. That can quite often be to do with the human movement, because they've probably got experience of somebody taking things away from them. So they start associating human movement coming towards me, particularly with a hand going like that, means I'm going to lose something. It means something's going to, there's going to be some sort of loss. Of course, it can be the same with other dogs as well. So the dog coming towards me means I'm going to lose something. Or it could be, with some dogs in some situations that you come across, the other dog goes, say one dog's got a toy, the other dog goes towards them, and the humans will come and take the toy off that first dog and say, well, that's not fair, or you need to share, or it's his turn now, or something like that. So that's one reason. Another reason, and this will come as no surprise to anybody, is going to be the buckets. And in this case, where we've got an issue with reactivity outside as well, this would be a really good place to start, actually, is the bucket. And think, because there are 3 dogs involved, it would be about the communal bucket, the household bucket. The next one would be this focus that we've been talking about. So it does actually fit in. Focus. Yeah, let's just say issues with focus. So where you've got a dog, and this is actually one of the most common ones that I come across, is where, say you've got a spaniel that steals socks. We know that spaniels like to steal socks. It's just one of their things, isn't it? And then somebody goes to take the sock away. It's not because they really love the sock. There's nothing really in it for having the sock. It's about the fact that they've taken the sock and then they get very focused on it and they can't bring themselves away from it. And that's what then leads to the resource guarding. There is actually as well the object that is part of it. So the sock itself is part of it, but it's not a mass. Well, it can for some dogs in some situations be a big part of it, but usually the cases that I see, certainly that one isn't as common as certainly these other 3. And then the other one that can sometimes happen is a dog, and this relates back to what we were saying earlier about that focus and that freeze. It's that issue with stillness. So when they freeze, they can't come out of that stillness gently. It's got to be a massive explosion, like explode out of stillness rather than coming out of it gently. So those are the sorts of things that if I was, if I was coming around to see you for a one-to-one, these are the things that we'd be having a look at, and we'd be prioritizing which are the most important ones. We've got very little information at the moment. I would probably start off looking at the top three most of the time, but it really does depend on the individual situation. So yes, I kind of hope that makes sense. So those are the sorts of things to actually look at. The other thing with resource guarding is, thinking there are various risk factors to resource guarding. The biggest risk factor to a dog resource guarding is having a history. I have to get myself back the other way around. Does my absolute nutting. Having a history of people or other dogs taking things from them, and then not getting anything out of it. So we need to make sure that if something is taken away from them, they get something even better in return. And I know people sometimes struggle with that because they think, oh my goodness me, isn't it just going to make them do it more and more? Well, the alternative is that you get a dog that gets increasingly resource guardy and feels unsafe, which is far, far worse. The taking things away, them stealing socks, for example, you can deal with. Management is going to be by far your best option. The things you can do to help protect against it is teaching a really good out or drop cue. That's a really, really useful one, so that you don't have to take things away. You're always doing an exchange, but they're doing it because you've asked them to, which is really nice. So that's something that's really important to do, and also just getting them used to movement. So we are going to have some stuff coming up which will be relevant to this issue if it's a multi-dog issue. Because when it's a multi-dog issue, the reasons we've kind of gone through, but because you've got more than one dog, you have to deal with it in slightly different ways. So yeah, and I'd be interested to know a little bit more. I hope that's helpful. Right, I'm just going to go through 1,000,001 comments that I've missed because I've been talking about that lovely question, because it was a lovely question, and that's why I decided to answer it. So I'm in a pickle now. Here we go. So Lisa has a friend whose 2-year-old female went away for training against your advice. Well done you for giving the good advice. Her dog is reactive to people coming to the house. She always pees. Any ideas how to fix this? Sounds like a very fearful dog, a very anxious dog. And you can understand that. The problem with residential training, which is I'm sure why you advised against it, and this isn't true for all residential training, but the majority will use aversive methods. And it also doesn't teach the human what to do either. So a bit pointless, really. So you can end up with if you've got, they've gone to a residential training, nasty things have happened to them with strangers. They're going to come back, and all strangers are now going to be really problematic for them because they're scared. They're absolutely terrified. So the first thing that I would do, we would do it like we would with dog reactivity. So you'd start off with a reset, you'd help your dog to feel safe. You'd do some games like enrichment type stuff, things like if you've got that enrichment course, it's got some really nice ones in there that help build confidence. So building up confidence. The other thing that I would do is I would see if you can engineer situations where the dog can meet people outside. And when I say meet, I mean go within about 10 meters of. It's about building really gradually, the same as you would with another dog. So say you've got a dog that's really reactive outside, With most of those dogs, it's not going to be a great idea to bring a strange dog into your house, because that's going to be even harder because it's your dog's house, you know. And so it's natural for them to be a little bit more on edge there than it is out and about. So I'd start with some people outside. So another example with the delightful Hattie, and because of all her many and several madness issues, she's not keen on strangers coming into the house. So what do we do about it? Well, I would never just have someone knock on the door, say, do come in, and get them to go straight up to her. That would never happen. That would be far too dangerous. It would be too risky. And she would be massively uncomfortable with that. What I try to do, if possible, if people are coming around, is to go for a little walk, even if it's just up and down the road with her first, with the person, and maybe get the person. I don't get the person to give the dog treats, because that creates conflict, because there's a thing that I'm scared of, but it's holding something I really want. And when you've got conflict, it can go wrong really, really quickly and really, really badly. So we don't want to go there. So what I might do, if possible, when I was out and about, is maybe the ideal is if the person could go down low, so sit on a bench or something like that, and then throw pieces of food past the dog, so the dog can move away for the person and get the treat, so you don't have that kind of conflict. And then you get that association, and that person's a little bit nicer. Then what I would do, if they're really nervous, this is what I do with Hattie, is I get the person in first and seated. The worst thing that can happen, and it happens so much when visitors come around, is that the people hang around in doorways, and dogs hate it when people hang around in doorways. So if you can bring them in first and get them seated, and then have the dog on lead, bring them in, while the person's seated, and just, allow see how the dog is. If they're really worried, then remove them from the situation. You don't want to have that dog being really worried. You can maybe try again a little bit later. Do it really, really gradually. But all these things might need to happen super gradually. But it's an issue that I would definitely be getting some, I think your friend could really do some proper one-to-one help with that. You're more than welcome to put them in touch with me and Barbara, and to do one of our diagnostic calls. We can get them started. More than happy to do that. I'll put the link into the diagnostics in a bit. Berit asks a massively sensible question, which is, did I make my cardigan myself? I did. Look, hang on. I'm super pleased with it. So yes, I did. It was a labor of love. It's got a little hood, which is kind of cute. It hasn't got pockets, needs pockets. And what I did, I just used, look, you can see the pattern up nice and close there. I used just leftover bits of yarn that I had, so it didn't cost me anything. And the thing that I love about it most is, look, it's got sparkly bits in it. And I fade into the background when I'm wearing this, as I always do, as you know. Carmela, that's a really good question actually about the resource guarding. Is it a new behaviour? Because if it is, we could have some pain, discomfort, that kind of thing. Really great point. Thank you for putting that in. Okay, so she's been cleared medically, been taken her out to home depot and pet stores. She's great with me inside and outside, struggling with the constant accidents. It's down to fear. It really is an anxiety thing. So it's going to be dealing with that anxiety. Yeah, see if you can book a diagnostic with us. Excellent. Thank you for the wows to the cardigan. You can only make mismatched mittens. Do you know, everything I do gets a little bit mismatched, and you kind of cobble it together at the end, don't you? You guys make me smile. Right, let me see if I can get, I'll do it afterwards actually, because I'm going to get myself in a pickle if I try to do this while I'm on this call. I'll put a link to the diagnostic course. Just for those diagnostics, if you know anybody else that would like one, just pass the link over. We're more than happy to bring people, into our Barking Up the Right Tree little community and little home. So next week, I changed my mind slightly actually about what I was going to be doing next week, because initially I said I was going to be looking at what did I say I was going to be looking at? Something or other. Hang on a minute. I said, because I'm a liar, I was going to look about how the dog senses the world and how we can use that knowledge to help them. I will be talking about that, but not next week. Next week is going to be all about how we use what we know about our dogs, and we learn to accept who they are and how we work with them as who they are, rather than trying to fit square pegs into round holes. So we're going to have a little bit of a chat about that. So I hope that will be useful for you. Yeah, we've got some other nice things in the pipeline that are coming up that we're working on at the moment. We're sort of repackaging our reactivity reboot to hopefully be able to give more people the ability to access it, and the ability to access support in an easier way for everybody, which should be super duper fun. Okie dokie. I am going to leave you guys to it. My husband is down in London for 2 days. I have no son in the house, so I'm going to go and see my mum and go around to my mum's house for tea. Because that's what you do, isn't it, really? If you're lucky like me and you still have your mummy around. And my dad, to be fair, but he just sort of sits there while me and mum chatter on, as you do. So yeah, I'm going to go and do that. If you can, if your dogs, let's give everybody a little bit of homework, okay? So it would be great if everybody could take a dog on a walk where they're leading the way, take a couple of snaps of some of the places that they take you to and pop them in the group. That would be so lovely. So yeah, if you could do that, I would love it. And I will see you next week. Take care of yourselves. Bye bye.